Hello, welcome. I have Soumya Karkera with me today. She's a life coach for children and parents, and we're going to be talking about social anxiety in kids and loneliness, and also supporting kids through transitions that they make, such as changing schools or moving. So, a little bit about Soumya before we get started. She's a skilled life coach who has been resourcing children and parents for over 16 years. Soumya's expertise lies in providing children with the necessary tools to equip them with life skills to thrive with resilience, optimism, and self-belief. Being a parent herself, Soumya brings on the table her experiences to help families stay connected by offering parenting approaches, tools, and techniques. Her wealth of experience and proficiency make her a valuable resource for anyone looking to improve their family's well-being. So welcome, Soumya. I'm so glad you could join me today.
Thank you, Colin. This is a pleasure. I'm happy to be here talking to you.
Yeah, thanks so much. So I wonder if we could get started on the topic of social anxiety. And I thought maybe a good place to start would be sharing with the audience what you see social anxiety looking like. Like, what do the parents and the teachers see? Because I'm imagining that maybe sometimes there's signs that are obvious, but maybe sometimes there's subtle things that people don't even recognize. They just think it's bad behavior.
Yeah, yeah. You're absolutely right, Colin. So when children come to me, or when I have seen children, or what parents or teachers often say is for the first few times, it might go missed, just like you said, because they're very good at hiding it. They think that, oh, if they admit, or if they find out, they're more afraid of their anxiety showing up, and initially they are really quiet about it. And I think what parents starts noticing is that the child may continuously say no to going to a friend's place when they're being invited. That's some of the signs that showing up. Or they may start to have panic attacks, or they might just keep saying no most of the time. And they might start seeing that when the social anxiety takes over, then it starts impacting their everyday life. That's I mean, it's different from being shy. And in school, you can actually see that children are very not even putting their hand up to answer a question that's very easy,
Uh,
and they might struggle with that. Or they may be very they may not take up any opportunity to go up on the stage and do a speech or do a performance, even if they have practiced it really well.
mm,
So what comes about with children when they come to me, between the ages of 5 and 15, it starts to show a lot. And when they are teens, you can see that a bit more, because you might start hearing things like, there is a right thing to do everything. Like, there's a right thing to wear, there's a right thing to say, there's a right thing to be a certain way. And you would start hearing that a lot. And you'd start hearing things like, oh, I'm really worried about what other people are going to think about me.
right. And that's
So
linked to the
social,
right way. The right way is
yes,
trying to fit
yeah,
in and worrying
yeah,
about what other
yeah,
people think.
yeah, exactly. So social anxiety is about how other people perceive you. And
Right.
because of that, you are feeling really embarrassed, and, like, going into that embarrassing mode and zoning out. And some kids can really have a freeze response to it. Some
Mm-hmm.
of them are having a lot of flight response. Very rarely there is a lash out or a fight, but you would normally see that would end up in isolating themselves. So these are what you would normally get. I mean, when children come to me, often what I get to hear is, I'm really worried about what other people will think of me. When I walk outside, I am terrified about how they look at me. And even if they are whispering, their friends are whispering to somebody else, they might think that is
Ah,
about them. Yeah. And
right,
even if a stranger, whilst you're walking on the road, the child's walking on the road, if they've just looked at them like that, they'll think they are judging them for their looks. So
right,
it is about how their way of thinking is, what are other people going to think of me? That's
right.
what it's about. It's
So they,
not,
I was just going to
yeah,
say, so they've got a real fear inside of other people judging them.
judging them. Yeah,
Yeah. Wow.
yeah.
That's,
And that they'll be a laughing stock and ridicule.
oh,
Yeah,
yeah, that's really painful. And really
mhm.
hard for parents to see in their kids too, hey?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. So I'm just wondering, is loneliness must be a part of that then sometimes at some point if they're not if they start to be too afraid to reach out
yeah.
and make friends, or they start
Yeah,
saying no to invitations to birthday parties and stuff like that. Is that
exactly. That is the outcome of social anxiety. If you
right?
don't act on it and if you don't start asking for help. So that's how most young people end up social isolation. So they become very good at keeping them inside in the home, or even if they are in a canteen, like most children you would see would go and join up with other kids to eat.
Mm,
Um, they wouldn't join. They'd just sit in one corner and not have any engagement at all. They might most often avoid and say no to any parties, and they'd just coop up in the house. They'd
right.
walk on their own, even if there are many other children that may be taking the same bus, going in the same bus. They just sit on their own. So, yes, social isolation becomes the outcome. That's what you get to see if they don't really get the support, if they, because most often they don't even want to ask for help. Again,
Mm,
they're afraid and that they would embarrass themselves because they feel that, oh, my anxiety is now going to show, and that's
mm-hmm,
not what I want. So it is about themselves and how they perceive their self confidence or esteem about the way they look at themselves is so poor. The
mm,
negative self perception, and
yeah,
they see that that's how they see themselves, so they feel the others see them in the same way. So
right.
yes,
So there's a little bit of, it sounds like maybe there's a little bit of shame wrapped in there too, right? Because that's
yes,
typically that reluctance to ask for help or the reluctance to even admit there's a problem, that
yes,
tendency to
yeah,
want to
yes,
um,
yeah,
hide
yeah,
your struggle because feeling like you're the only
absolutely,
one. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. And as they start growing up, and if this becomes an issue, so what happens is every day becomes a problem. Like it has a significant impact on their school life, on their friendship,
Mm,
on in the home itself.
mm-hmm,
Whereas if you say, because sometimes parents or teachers confuse it to shyness. Shyness is okay, it's healthy. When you are out in a social situation, if somebody approaches you, you would still say yes, hello, hi. You'd want to respond back. But when there is social anxiety, there is really no responding back. It's just looking down your body. You just take yourself away. There'll be panic attacks. Some who might want to feel very nauseous. This is what they say. There's quite a lot of big knot in the stomach.
mm,
Sometimes children lash out because that's the best way they can protect themselves.
mm-hmm.
Yeah, so you'd
Well, and
start.
it's just, yeah, that would be that feelings are too big for them to manage, and it just
Yeah,
comes out that way. And I
yeah,
just want to clarify for the people who are listening, when you say panic attacks, I
yeah.
think you mentioned nausea or the knots in the stomach. I'm imagining that's part of that.
Yeah.
Is there anything else that people should know that they would recognize that what they're seeing is a panic attack?
Yeah, I think the pan again, the children may not really say, but there'd be lot of sweating. They'd start,
Yeah,
I know you work with lots of parents, and
yeah,
you have that intense knowledge about the body as well. So
yeah.
you would start See, anything that is a bit different. I know many children say that their hands become really sweaty. They become
Nervous. Yeah.
restless.
Yeah.
Yeah, like just jittery and walking front and back,
Yeah.
or just putting their head down and not looking up at all. And with the panic attack, they might just really start to say that they're not okay to a parent or things like
Right.
that. Sometimes this could happen in school
Mm.
whilst they are on their own and they have to approach. So at that time, I think it's mostly their breath and just really sometimes having a hard time gasping for air or
Mm.
just really feeling nauseous, becoming
Yeah.
sick.
I think
Yeah.
that I think that tummy ache
Yes.
thing is really a very often a subtle symptom that people don't
Yeah.
recognize as anxiety.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Which is at the bottom
No
of the
other
tummy.
explanation. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, thanks for that. So what kind of what helps parents then? Because I know you work a lot with children, but you also find that you need to work with the parents so that they can
Yeah.
support the kids in a different
Yeah.
way once
Yeah.
um, you're making changes with the kids.
Yeah.
What kinds of things help the parents understand what kids need? Could you maybe just
Yeah.
touch on that briefly?
Yes, when children are socially anxious, parents can start observing that and making a note of when these things are happening to really
Hmm.
distinguish between shyness and if it is developing into social anxiety. Because initially, at the initial stage, parents also don't know because the children may be very good at hiding it,
Mm-hmm.
and there might be a real confusion because I do hear parents coming to me saying, my child is really shy, right?
Mm.
And then when we explore a bit more, it then becomes okay, there seems to be like low social anxiety coming in here. And then always checking in with the child because social anxiety can develop due to various reasons. There
Mm-hmm.
could be bullying that must be happening in school. They must have gone through some sort of rejection, like by a friend. You know, they've had a friend for several months. They've got really good. There might be a good friendship circle going on, and then they've fallen out, and then that's caused something.
Mm.
There could be issues like some teacher has told them off in the school or in the class in
Mm.
front of everybody. There are
Oh,
several reasons that can trigger this, or that could be the starting point of beginning of social anxiety. And I think when we explore and go back to it, we'll be able to find out why it started.
right.
Yes. And if the child is going through a lot of symptoms and if it is recurring, I quote again, if it's recurring pattern, if they are beginning to notice this, it's happening again and again for a given period of time. Now it's left to the parents' judgment. How long has this been going on for?
Mm.
Are the symptoms increasing, worsening, or staying the same? This is really important. So if it is shyness, it might just be, there'll be a good improvement in as they grow up. They will grow out of it. But with social anxiety, if help does not come in at the right time, the only possibility is it will stay the same or it will get worse. Unless
Mm.
there is an intervention, it's not going to really get better in that way. And
Right.
also to identify if the child needs that help and what type of help is needed. So everybody responds to help in a different way. Sometimes
Mm-hmm.
parents are really good at helping this when they've caught it early. They are
Yeah.
able to introduce things, and it's only when things worsen that they might have to start looking for some professional help and intervention at greater depth.
Mm.
I
And what
hope
I
that.
love about the idea of supporting help at the point when you need it is that, for every human probably ever born on earth,
Yeah.
we all have moments of social anxiety. You know, it's
We do.
hardwired
Yeah.
into our reptilian brain that we need to feel a sense of belonging or acceptance somewhere in our tribe. And so
Yeah.
everybody has, you know, even small amounts of that at some point. And the skills that the kids learn when, and the parents learn when they seek help, are just such great general life skills, right?
Exactly.
Because there's always going to
Exactly.
be stressors, like, you know, you're an adult and you go to a job interview, or you're trying to get
Absolutely.
along with colleagues at work and you're not sure
Yeah.
what they think about how you're doing something
Yeah.
differently, or yeah,
Yeah.
so those
Yeah.
skills are just so valuable for
They
life.
are very valuable. And I think this was where I was getting to, because I work with a lot of career coaches or career
Mm.
practitioners. And I get to hear a lot from them these days that they're having a lot of difficulty with children not having any one-to-one, human-to-human
Ah,
conversations and connect. They're doing it online, or they're doing it because that's easy. They're sitting on the screen. They
yeah.
have to type. They don't have to talk. So it's easy in that way. But the jobs world or interviews, like you mentioned, is not going to work that way.
Mm.
So there's been quite a lot of young people that me and my colleagues who are in the careers profession or careers advisors, we get this, like, kids have finished their A levels, which I don't know is equivalent to what in Canada, but they are 16 years old and they're finishing school and getting into the interviews jobs world. There's so much panic around that. Like, they suddenly don't have the skills to communicate with people face to face.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not getting them universities or places that they want to go. And
Mm-hmm.
suddenly there's very little time to learn all these things in that, there's a pressure of learning all these
Yes.
new skills. And it doesn't happen overnight.
Yes, exactly. And oh, I just lost my train of thought. Yeah, it's so important because those are skills that traditionally, before there was online, you know, not
Yeah.
to say that online is bad, but
Mm.
oh, I know what I was going to say. When you're in a face-to-face interaction, like we are now, you have to be able to flow with a response in the moment. You know,
Exactly.
I
Yeah.
think people don't always think about the fact that when you respond by text message or email, you have time to think about what your response is going to
Exactly.
be. So there
Yeah.
can be more anxiety associated with that if you have a tendency towards some social anxiety anyways.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think there is some more thing that's going on with it. I don't know about you, but I grew up in a joint family back in India. The community was more closed and tight knitted. So I
Mm.
had lots of aunties, uncles, cousins, social occasions that was going on. So even if I was not ready for it, I was thrown into it a bit.
Mm.
And even if one of my parent was not the best role model for social connections, my other aunts, uncles, cousins, like I watched them, or they were good role
Mm-hmm.
models for it. Right now, if I come to my family in the UK, which we are just three of us, and my daughter does not really have that bigger community or
Mm-hmm.
wider family setting. If one of her parents, like, I will say this, my husband's less social, but I would be more social that way. So she's getting that only from one parent,
Mm-hmm.
and role modeling from one parent without having that wider community as well. And I think social skill is more about watching others and taking it on, what works for you, what does not
Yeah.
work for you. So I think kids are mixing that as well. Do you have to
Yeah.
say anything on that? I find that as contributing to an element of social anxiety as well.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you for raising that and for sharing your personal example. I agree 100%. I think and I think that's a situation that lots of parents are in
Hmm.
these days. Yeah, it's makes such a difference if you have a broader community of adults who care deeply
Exactly.
about your children and who are, you know, providing that unconditional acceptance, love and
Absolutely.
acceptance, which
Exactly.
no matter how
Yeah.
much your teacher cares about you at school or likes you, that's just not the same, right? And that's not
It's just
negative
not the
against the
same.
teachers. It's just the way it is.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
So I wonder if we could just talk for a few minutes about transitions as well, because I know you work with kids who make transitions, whether that's moving to a new school from, in Canada here, we have, elementary to middle school to high
Yeah,
school. And
yeah.
then, so those are kind of the smaller transitions, but then there's also moving to another city. And I know you work with a lot of immigrant families as well. So I wonder if you could just speak to some of the emotional challenges that kids have. I'm sure
Yeah,
social anxiety is one of them.
yeah,
When they have to make a move like that. And
yeah,
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 just tell us about
yeah.
that.
So social anxiety is definitely one of them because it's a huge move for them, even if it's from a small school to a big school.
Mm,
Because immediately things shift to becoming more independent. A lot of emphasis is given on autonomy, right?
mm,
Developing that skill to do things and figure out what's going on. So I think as young they are, and when their initial ages, this I'm talking about school, happening with a lot of nurturing, suddenly moving into something so huge and where you're left like on your own to swim in the ocean can be very overwhelming. Some
mm,
kids are very excited about it and they take it with, they welcome that. But some children who have social anxiety, it could be a bigger problem. And it's mostly the overwhelm itself, like, I'm just trying to think of um child who just moved country, culture shock for kids
mm,
who are moving country,
mm-hmm,
whatever age they are. Culture shock is a huge one, and they might be traveling from one of the biggest cities from their country, but coming and that move, and also losing friends. Um,
mm-hmm,
from their own, which has already formed a deeper friendship group, their families, etc. That's another one. And certain other things come into play are taking the bus on their own. This is when they're moving to different schools. So a lot of it is about emotions itself. So something that parents can recognize and do is to check in with the children all the time about how they are feeling, because
mm,
it's a process. It's the
mm-hmm,
process. So just like how we transition from one task to another, this is a huge one. Sometimes they're not able to see through it properly like we adults can see. They might be excited about it, but I have often seen when they land in that situation, when they are in it, it just goes everywhere
mm,
because that's when they start experiencing it. And at that time, again, there could be many elements like bullying, getting into this new environment,
mm,
uncertainty, unknown
mm-hmm,
fears, uncertainty and unknown. What's going to happen here, I think, are the biggest one to address,
mm-hmm,
especially with children who have social anxiety. It could be
mm-hmm.
quite hard for them. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah,
yeah,
it sounds like it's really multifaceted and
it is.
and I'm imagining that, the parents have their own stresses.
Yeah,
If it's been a family move as opposed to just a
yeah,
child moving schools, which can be stressful enough for them,
yeah,
then there's all of that family stress on top. Maybe the parents have new jobs or
yeah.
and they're trying to fit
New
into a new
jobs,
culture.
new culture, the stresses, they've left the family of origin and they have
Mm,
just moved here. And being in a Western culture mostly would mean that you have to do everything on your own. Shifting
right.
shifts that take place with food. I see
Mm,
that quite a lot, the food, because it's very different, and the climate as well, weather. So when
right.
they move in the winter, things are more harder for families or children because it's
Mm,
really cold, it gets dark too quickly, and
mm,
then the schools in the West open during September, isn't it? So it's
yeah.
already getting dark at this time. So to
Right.
make all those shifts, and one thing I'd always say parents is check in with their emotions. What's happening with them?
Mm.
Validate what they're saying. And often you notice that children don't say at that time. Say, for example, we've said to them, oh, we have to make this big move, or you're going to this new school. They may not know much. They may have very fewer questions because they still don't know what's coming, or they're still not in the situation. Don't push children to say, what's going on with you? What's going on with you? Why are you not telling me what your
Yeah,
thoughts
yeah,
are?
yeah,
Wait for them to
yeah.
talk about it.
Nice. And yeah, and being accepting of what they share is going to be a big factor in whether they keep being willing to share. And one thing that strikes me is that I'm imagining that in addition to maybe excitement about some of the new possibilities,
Yeah,
making sense of and learning to accept that you can be maybe excited about new possibilities, but also scared about all the things you don't know, and also
yeah,
feeling grief over what you've left
yes,
behind, right? So
yeah,
all of those mixed
exactly.
emotions. And
Yeah,
for kids, I guess for parents to recognize that it doesn't have to be either or,
yeah,
it can be all
yeah,
of them at once. And
yeah.
that's real and that's hard.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. And I think they'd start noticing that every child's capabilities and abilities are different. Some children might cope really well with transitioning from taking a bus and getting to their school. They'd never want their parent. And another child might need the parent to be there in the bus for 1 month.
Mm,
So it's to identify these things, these little things that make a difference. I know of a young child who moved and then got severely bullied, and he
mm,
had just moved countries and got here in October. And just to do that move, that grief, like you just mentioned, the minute they came, the school was already open and they had no time to process that grief that they'd
right.
left
Yeah.
country, they left the family of origin. They were in the school, and the boy started experiencing lot of bullying,
Mm,
which I think is, everything comes with that process of transition. And there was, because the support went in, the parent identified it immediately and got the help. And then things started to settle because the young person or the child had a space to talk about what was going on,
right.
including the parent.
And
And
process
when
it.
we put, yes, and process it. And when the child was able to talk to a party that's not school, that's not home, and when we were having these conversations, I explored he was good at drawing. So it basically drawing everything, because it was hard to say whether it's culture or whether it's the shock or whether it's the bullying. But then having that one-to-one time once a week was just transformational for
Mm,
both parents, because even the parent was traveling to the Western world for the first time with
mm-hmm.
two children and two new jobs for the parents.
Yeah,
So,
that's a lot.
yeah,
Yeah. And I just, as we sort of close this section, I just want to remind parents who have kids who are even changing schools or maybe not making such a big move as from one country to another, that the same principles apply of really honoring that your kids are going to have mixed feelings and accepting all of those feelings, and really knowing that they might need the space to do the grieving, and to have, and they really, the best support probably you could give them, or one of the best supports that parents can give themselves, is to really accept the feelings they're having and really
yes,
acknowledge and validate them.
yeah,
So
yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
yeah, so that's super helpful. Thank you, Soumya. I just wonder, if you can tell us a little bit about how you work with parents in closing. And I just want to say that I know you to be highly skilled at developing relationships, trusting relationships with kids, and
yeah,
in a way that they feel willing to share with you when they may not be willing to share with their parents. And I also
yeah,
love that you really focus on supporting kids and families by helping them learn to resource themselves so they can develop that resiliency. So
Yes.
on that note, I'll just let you tell parents about how they can reach you or how you work with parents and kids.
Um, So, I mean, I don't, I've always strongly felt, and maybe this is my social work background or my own lived experience when I was young and I was experiencing problems, I thought I needed help, but
Mm,
I also very strongly felt my parents could have done a little with the help too. Right. And my social work practice was all about, oh, social work is about resourcing families.
mm,
And the more I did that for 16 years, I began to understand that I cannot just work with the child. I mean,
mm,
if there is misunderstandings, if there's anything to do with relationships, I have to bring the parent on board. This is what I continued into work as well. Now, there is an option. I can work with only children and I can work with parents only. There are times when I feel that parent and child both need the support. When I experience this, I will propose this to the parent because
mm,
only when we do that, the family connections and ties will come together. There'll be
mm-hmm,
a balance and an equilibrium we can establish. So when I propose this, most parents are willing, and when we do the work together, it's about understanding. So most parents know what to do for their children. They are very good at providing and supporting and helping. But the needs of the child change. So this is more psychology, or this is more the growing or the developmental part. So in my own case, I can say that when my daughter was very young as a baby, I did not connect with her that much, but my connections are really, I enjoy being a mom of a teen. Now,
mm,
most parents don't like that, because teenage years are really tough. So I think this is where my role comes in. There's a
mm-hmm,
dispute in the family because of various reasons. The child saying something, the parent saying something, there's a discord, there's disruption, there's dispute. So when this occurs, my role
mm-hmm,
is to actually bring them together by offering education,
mm-hmm,
offering some awareness about teen brain development, or what's going on here in the dynamics. And if parent can have any new skills, because maybe their parenting style is not working. It may have
mm,
worked 5 years ago, but it's
mm-hmm,
not working now when they are a teen or when they're stepping into adulthood.
mm,
So that's where my role comes in, so that we can smoothen these issues and we can have that connection. I do feel with our nuclear families, we need that connection, and if we
mm-hmm,
lose it, we may not get it back when our children are adults.
mm.
Mm.
Yeah. Yeah, the connection is an important piece for sure. So
Yeah,
I'll put the links that you've given me below the video for folks who want to reach you or
yeah,
explore working with you further.
yeah.
Do you have anything else to add before we close? Any last?
Yeah, I just say that my work is mostly one-to-one
Mm-hmm.
as of right now, and I have an
Okay.
exploratory session where we see if we are a fit to work with each other.
Okay.
Um, and that's a very good place to bring any sort of queries or anything that you've been mulling over. Do I need support? Does my child need support? And if you're beginning to think on those grounds, the exploratory is really good.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where I would say, would be a good point to start as well. And once we've talked about it and the problems or the needs have been discussed, I'd be able to suggest what's the best way of working.
Mm.
That's, yeah, yeah,
Okay. All right. Thank you. That sounds really clear. So again, those links will be below. Thank you so much for your time today,
so
Soumya.
much.
I know you have a busy practice. I really appreciate your time and you being willing to share your wisdom with us today on these topics.
Thank you very much, Colin. I've enjoyed this. Thank you.
Mm. Okay.